Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Chatting with the Lightkeeper. As always, I'm Edward, aka the Lightkeeper, but I am willing to guess that most of you listening knew that. And to start with, I always start with what's new and exciting in my fair city. And unfortunately, I guess this is really actually more fortunately. I can say not a lot is new or exciting in my, small little fair city, other than the evenings have been fantastic as of late. Done a lot of bit of walking, and a lot of that walking has been around the grounds of my favorite lighthouse, and a couple of times on those walks, I have enjoyed the company of somebody who's new to lighthouses and the area. So it's been sort of fun to share the knowledge of unique and yet never going to appear on Jeopardy categories knowledge that I possess of the light station and some of the local area. I mean, it's really something I take for granted to be able to, for example, say, "Oh yeah, and that's Canada right there. It's no big deal. It's Canada." And for somebody who's not from here, they're like, "But that's a foreign country. You mean you just go to a foreign country, cross the bridge, and show your passport, and you know you're in another country?" And yeah, and growing up here, it was never a big deal to go over, to Canada for dinner or something to do, because there is it's really it's more than twice the size, almost three times the size city on the other side of the border. So there's obviously much more entertainment value going on just across the way, which is in another country, which if you don't live here is unique and kind of fun. So that's been my exciting what's new in Edward's world. The humidity kind of left the world here for a little while, so it was those just gorgeous summer days and summer nights when the temperature was perfect. There was no, you didn't just like want to keel over from the heat because it was so muggy and hot. Unfortunately, that's coming back according to the folks that do the weather predictions. So I am hunker down as I talk to you with the windows closed, my good friend air conditioner running full blast, and yeah, staying cool and comfortable. And I hope that you are staying cool and comfortable, or warm and comfortable, or just right, wherever you're listening, and no matter what your season, because as it boggles my mind to think, there is somebody listening right now, and it's wintertime where they're listening, and it boggles my mind to think, being the skier that I am, somebody could be planning a ski trip and the mountains or their hills are covered in snow right now, and it's not far from them. And, here it is hot, hot, hot. And on a couple of these hot days, yeah, some rolling around in the snow would be a welcome relief. But it still just kind of boggles my mind. Anyways, uh, get my mind on scrambled and kind of let's kind of get to the fun topic at hand. And one of the things that as human beings we all like to think. We all like to think we're unique, right? I mean, I know I do. I do like to think of myself for better or worse as being a unique human, and I am willing to reckon most of you do as well. But the thing is, when it comes to our journeys, especially into BDSM and kink, while our journeys often feel very unique, and in some cases they are, in other ways they are very intensely personal journeys, which even if we share almost an identical journey with somebody else, it's still very, very personal. And there are amazing similarities. There actually, have been those good people who wear the white lab coats that have looked into this, doctors and researchers and whatnot. And there are some amazing similarities that many of us share as we journey into BDSM and kink. So let's go through and let's talk about some of the things that we may have in common that we perhaps don't realize that we do have in common with each other. So let's start with the first one, and it's the people that you'll meet along the way. Um, for better or worse, we are going to bump in to people as we start to go down the rabbit hole of BDSM and kink. Oftentimes, we will. I guess let's start with the positive, right? Let's not jump in with the naughty negatives, but let's keep it positive. Most of the time, the great majority of the time, when we are diving into BDSM and kink, whether we're new or exploring something new to us, the people that we run into are warm, they're friendly, they're welcoming, they are, willing and able to answer our questions to the best of their abilities. We will meet some of the best people in the lifestyle. We absolutely will. Open minded, inclusive, you name it. You will build amazing friendships. You will, have some bonds with some people that are just absolutely incredible. And on top of that, um, the lifestyle is so diverse. You meet people from different backgrounds, sexualities, professions, that if it wasn't going down the rabbit hole of the lifestyle, we would never, ever have had the opportunity to meet these people. So that's really something that's incredibly positive about the lifestyle. The other thing that all of this peopling within the community does is we learn, and this is very important to almost everybody who comes to the lifestyle. Even if it's just to explore and they decide, you know what, I looked at it and this whole thing, it sounded great, but when I got into it, it wasn't for me. Even those people that, the isn't for me people, when you start to think about kink or you start to think that this is something you want to explore, we tend to feel alone. We think we're the only ones who would like this. There can't be anybody else that thinks this way. I mean, it's one of those I can think back and remember when I was stuck thinking that I was the only person on earth who liked the idea of spanking somebody consensually. Other than my ex-girlfriend who liked to be spanked. I thought it was just like she was like the only other person on this planet that was like the opposite of me that liked what I liked just from the opposite side. And yeah, that's wrong, right? We're not alone. There's this whole huge community out there, whether you do it interact with it online or in person, of people that are like you. They might not be exactly like you, but they're going to be very similar and they're going to be supportive. And in this community, we're gonna, hear other people tell their tales, their personal stories, their connections, their experiences, and we're gonna find acceptance, and we're gonna find friendships, and we're gonna find common ground with others. And it's fantastic to realize that we are not alone as we bumble down the rabbit hole of BDSM and kink. Now, unfortunately, since we are talking about people, and people, well, people will be people, which means we're gonna have some negative encounters. Sometimes, like I talked about last week, the toxic Avenger. While Toxie was a, kind of a positive cult hero, we will run into some toxic individuals in the lifestyle who are not toxic Avengers going out and trying to right wrongs and all of that. They are just toxic people. So when we interact with all these new people that we're meeting, we need to be conscious of red flags, how to handle them. We need to vet carefully. And we, of course, need to make sure we do what we can to protect our safety. It doesn't matter what your role is, we all have to stay safe. And if you are a newer listener to the podcast, I think it's common for people to think stay safe. That really kind of goes out to those who identify as female or those who identify as submissive, because if you are male identifying or dominant identifying, really, I mean, what bad things are gonna happen? You know, you've got the masculinity and the dominance, or just the dominance minus the masculinity to sort of give you a magical shield. Bad things do happen. I had a car set on fire. Truly, I did. So if you're curious to hear more about that, it's under, I believe I titled the episode Stay Safe, Avoid Flaming Cars. And I know the little picture next to it, this is before I went generic on the episode art, has a flaming car. So just, scroll through. I think it might be somewhere in early in season 2 or later in season 1. But scroll back through, and if you want to hear the story about how it doesn't just happen to people who are submissive or people who are that identify femininely. It happens to everyone. So staying safe and knowing our safety precautions protocols is absolutely imperative, no matter how you identify and where you find your home role wise. Another thing, once we get over the people party side of the lifestyle, is that we're all going to see an evolution in our kinks and fetishes. It's They're going to evolve. So often when we first start in the lifestyle, we will think, ooh, gross, or ick, ew, all these things when we start hearing what some people are into. Like, ooh, I can't believe I'm sitting across the table from that person who likes that. And then strange things happen to us. We get more experience. We experience new things. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, that one thing that very early on in the beginning, somebody brings it up, and rather than going, ew, gross, you have this thought, well, maybe with the right partner, I see now how that might be fun. Our kinks and fetishes change. No, I'm not saying that something that everyone, listening is going to have a moment where something they thought was ooh and gross, when they first started their journey 3 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever it is, and they're going to want to do it. That's not necessarily the case. But we will discover new aspects. We will discover new things we want to try. And oftentimes, these are things that were no goes when we first started. Um, and because of the open mindedness and the open minds, many people will even explore their sexuality in the lifestyle. It really is a judgment free zone, which allows people to, once they grow and start to feel comfortable, they are more than willing to explore things that once made them, uncomfortable. So it's really that encouragement to explore without judgment that really helps everything evolve. And kind of going along with this, and you know, 2024 is my personally decreed year of consent. Consent is actually something that when we go down the BDSM kink rabbit hole is surprising to a lot of people. Um, is how the fact that consent is talked about the way it is. It's it's not a one and done conversation where once you have that conversation, you don't need to have it again. Consent is always ongoing. It's not a one-time agreement. And it's dynamic. What might be okay today would be a no thank you tomorrow. And of course, going with consent is communication. We have to have we have to have hard conversations, especially when you're new. more seasoned in the lifestyle, it becomes easier to say, to have the meatloaf conversation. And I don't mean, what is it? Will Ferrell and Wedding Crashers, Ma, the meatloaf, but the singer Meatloaf. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that. The good old fashioned, hard limits. Um, those can be very hard conversations to have when you're starting out or newer, or perhaps even with a new partner. The meatloaf, I'll do anything for your love, but I'm not going to do that. And hope that that doesn't offend the person because I can feel intimidating. And then as we grow in the lifestyle, it becomes second nature to be able to express what we will do, what we won't do, and we'll be able to negotiate that. And when I say negotiate, it's not a matter of, if you'll do this on your list of hard limits, I'll give you this off my list of hard limits. It's not like that at all. It's finding common ground. For example, let's say you're into spanking and the person that you're wanting to spank is into spanking, but only in certain limited ways, maybe just with a bare hand or maybe with a specific type of implement. So you negotiate around what is, mutually agreeable. Yes, we can do that. No, we can't do that. And it's a wonderful ongoing thing of communication and consent. Just because you let me spank you last weekend, it doesn't mean I can walk up and start flailing away this weekend. It means we have to start over and, hey, happy Saturday. I would like to spank you this weekend. Is that okay? Now, of course, when you get into an established relationship, then the consensual discussions kind of move into, this is okay anytime. And if it's not, I'll tell you in the moment, I'll say no. So it that changes, but especially when you're new and in a newer partnership, the consent conversation happens over and over, which to people who are new to the lifestyle, it's very much different. The vanilla world typically doesn't work that way. Typically, consent tends to be that one-time agreement, and sadly, many people, especially many men, I'll point the finger there. Many men think that once they were, given permission to, you know, slide into second base. They can slide into second base at any point in time they want after that, and that's just not how it works. So our kinks evolve, our communication skills grow. We see consent in a whole new light as we explore the lifestyle. Now, another thing that's really kind of cool, and there's actually been a lot of research done on this, especially as of late, within the last 10 to 15 years, but it's so awesome because when we explore BDSM, we might feel happier. We might, think, wow, this sort of makes me happy. Or this whole, I did this scene with my dominant or my submissive, and it was really intense, but you know what? I haven't felt, you know, my mental health just feels so much better a week after this has happened. And here's the amazing thing. Research out there has shown that, when we practice BDSM and we kind of get our kink on, or at least research and identify as kinky, not necessarily getting our kink on with people we don't click with, but just accepting if it's a part of us, accepting it or researching it to see if it's a part of us. Doing that leaves people feeling more fulfilled and feeling happier. And when we actually do engage in wonderful kinktastic play, it reduces our stress levels um, because it has, I don't know whether it's the release of the chemicals, whether it gets us out of our own heads, and it clears away the fog, what have you, no matter your role, dominant, switch, submissive. It really helps our well being. Now, of course, some of the research suggests it's because of the chemicals that get released during play. Other others have put forward, theories that it has to do with discovering and belonging to a community that's bigger than us, and because of what we are practicing is seen as a little bit of a taboo with all sorts of, misconceptions out there from, the vanilla world sees that are not factual, to how people sort of think BDSM is a fantasy versus the reality of it. All of that, finding that community where we find our home and we can sort of learn my best Joe Friday voice, just the facts, ma'am. And he always said, ma'am. I don't think he ever said, I don't recall an episode of Dragnet where it was just the facts, sir. I guess it kind of goes to that old 1950s stereotype that, when something happens, women are the ones that don't hold it together. When my own lens has seen the world through, it's typically the women holding it together when something bad goes on, and it's the men who struggle. But that's my own lens. Your outlook may be different than mine. But just like that, there's so many misconceptions, and so when we connect and we have that community, it sort of gives us a shield to deflect all the myths and misconceptions that are out there about the lifestyle, which, of course, helps our happiness, helps our mental health, and helps us feel fulfilled, which is absolutely wonderful. And that really is something that I think is a surprise, especially now that it's actually being validated by research rather than just sort of anecdotal, comments or friends talking. We actually have some research that says, yeah, this is actually the case. Another thing that people are surprised when they come to the lifestyle and start researching it, um, how deep the emotional bonds are that you form, whether it's in a relationship, whether you're dating somebody, or if it's just in friendships. The whole lifestyle allows us to connect on a deeper level. And once again, those folks in their white doctor's jackets or lab coats, I guess we is the technical term, the lab coats. They say that the reason for this is because we are being more vulnerable and trusting with the people that we interact with, because the lifestyle has those negative connotations in the vanilla world. When we open up about the lifestyle with others, even if we know that they're in the lifestyle too, we are being vulnerable. And when we're vulnerable and somebody else is vulnerable, that's a great way to build trust. So, really, without trying without actually engaging in an exercise to build trust, if you've ever gone on a lovely corporate retreat, you've done trust building exercises, and they're so much fun. So much. But we in the lifestyle, because of how we interact, because of the misconceptions that are out there in the vanilla world, um, we build trust with others in the lifestyle, perhaps a little differently than some of our vanilla friends do, but really we open ourselves up to be vulnerable. They open themselves up to be vulnerable just by sort of, coming out and admitting that they too are involved or exploring the lifestyle, which allows us to connect on a much deeper level. Now, finally, the last few things that our trip down the BDSM kink rabbit hole does, obviously, we will be more self aware um, or making the trip down the rabbit hole. Whether we stay down the rabbit hole or we crawl out and say, "Oh, I don't ever want to go down there again. I saw things that can't be unseen. It is not for me." But the simple fact is that because people go down the rabbit hole, it's a journey of self-discovery. And when we embark on a journey of self-discovery, it's our choice. We choose to continue down the rabbit hole. We choose to continue to learn about ourselves. Even though it's through kink, we are developing greater self awareness. And hey, that is a beautiful thing. And as we also are journeying down this rabbit hole, we are challenging the norms of society. Even if you're not poly in your journey down the rabbit hole, you are meeting, potentially befriending people who are poly. You are meeting and getting to know people who are non-binary. You're getting to meet and know people who are transgender. And you yourself are probably the way you are practicing living the lifestyle, you're breaking stereotypes that somebody out there in the vanilla world has about BDSM. So, through all of our experience, we are shattering what the world thinks of us or expects of us. And on top of that, we are better understanding ourselves. Like I said, we are developing greater self awareness. And the more self aware we are, the more self esteem we have, the more self esteem, the more confident we show the world, and the more confidence we show the world, it's just this giant snowball of goodness rather than being a snowball that rolls downhill and goes flat on somebody for unfortunate effects for us rolling. So in a way we're sort of doing the opposite. We're rolling uphill but getting bigger and stronger as we go, against the slope of societal expectations and norms. So that is really, really a beautiful part of the whole exploring BDSM and the surprises that comes from it. Now, the other thing that comes from it, and I don't want to sound preachy here, because this is something that is very individualistic and choices that you have to make on an individual basis. But oftentimes, because of the exposure to BDSM, it's one of the things. It's not the only thing, that's for sure. Um, but typically, it can lead to some broader social activism. Um, and for example, a big thing that you will often see is folks within the BDSM community advocating for, sexual freedom, for sexual rights, all those sorts of things. So it can lead to feeling, this voice and the self-confidence we get as we journey down the rabbit hole. For some people, it allows them and gives them the strength, to then stand up and advocate for what they've learned about and what they believe, and advocating for those things. So, with that, it is obviously it's your choice whether you want to, be an advocate, um, or do some activism. And it doesn't have to be you, it doesn't have to fit you. But as you journey down the rabbit hole of BDSM and kink, you will come into the contact with people who, because of their lives, in addition to the experiences they've had in the lifestyle, it has freed them, and given them the confidence, to not only be an activist, but to be an advocate, or be an advocate and not an activist, or be an activist and not an advocate. But I think they kind of go hand in hand. Like if you do activism, you're an advocate, and if you're an advocate, you're an activist. But what do I know? I'm just a guy sitting there looking at his microphone and talking at you folks. So that is just my opinion. But it's one of the most amazing things about our journey into BDSM and kink, whether we stick around and stay, or whether we choose to go back to the vanilla world, or maybe go back someplace in between where we're just maybe a little mildly kinky rather than being full-blown members of the lifestyle, so to speak. But whatever level we find ourselves in after an honest and forthright journey into exploring BDSM, pretty much everybody out there is going to, they're going to have met amazing people. They are going to have found their community. They found their Build-A-Bear workshop where they built their circle of trusted kinktastic friends. They're going to see their outlook on kinks, and what's kinky grow and change. Um, you know, and doesn't necessarily mean that because your kinks have grown, that your sex going forward is going to be mind blowing and out of this world every time. Be great if that happened, but just like everything, there's ups and downs. But because you've explored kinks, you've discovered how things have changed, and that openness is going to, make our sex lives better and open us up to potentially trying new things, different things, or even the thing that we thought was ooh when we first started going down the rabbit hole. And finally, of course, we feel better. We are typically stronger with our mental health. Our stress levels are lower. Um, and, we are just generally happier overall as a cohort than our vanilla cousins. Obviously, some of our vanilla cousins may be healthier mentally and happier than we are, and others will not be. It's all sort of, in flux, just like we are. Every day's a new adventure. So there's all of that that happens when you go down the kinktastic rabbit hole. Now, I hope that you have, discovered some of this. If not, you've got more to discover and hopefully wonderful things ahead. But if you get a chance, um, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. What have you, had in common with this? Have you had something happen in your journey that is uncommon yet was a profound experience that you'd like to talk about? No matter where you listen to the podcast, sort of if you normally scroll down, you'll find a spot where you can send me feedback. So please do that. I'd love to hear your stories, hear your thoughts, and also when you go ahead and do that, please just let me know at the beginning or at the end, wherever it's convenient for you. But let me know whether it's okay to share it. Sometimes we just like to share things. You can share something with me. If you don't say it's okay to share, I'm not going to share it for the masses, but if it is, I would certainly like to do that. So just know that you can always reach out, share your thoughts, good, bad, indifferent. I'm always open to hearing them and learning from them and growing. So thank you very much for listening. And next week, we are going to sort of talk about the art of dominance. And yeah, we're just going to leave it at that. I don't want to jump in and sort of give away too many spoilers. But next week is the art of dominance. And in between now and then, please pop over, check out my website, chattingwithlightkeeper.com, or stop by, say hi at any of my social medias. Chatting with Lightkeeper, pretty much across the board from Pinterest to Facebook to Twitter. Sorry, X. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X. And of course, Instagram and its new cousin, Threads. I love Threads, by the way. And Threads, it's been a very positive BDSM community. So if you're looking for connecting with positive folks within and around BDSM, so far my interactions on Threads have been always positive, and everything I see is almost always positive. So if you're sort of looking for a place to maybe connect with other like-minded folks, give Threads a try. It's real easy, especially if you have Instagram already. So give that a whirl. But anyways, when you do, stop by, give me a wave, say hi, and I look forward to heading with you again next week. Until then, have a great week, and we'll talk soon.